go into this, okay? A function is simply a rule that relates two different quantities that have these inputs called x's, and those x's are supposed to have one output. So that's the very definition of a function. Don't worry too much about that. We'll come back to it later. Now, the relations, that definition, I don't even want us to worry about that for this video. On the second one, we'll come back to it. So just pretend it's not even there. I mean, it is, but just pretend it's not. Now, functions can be represented as a table down here, and in the very first row, we're going to have that as our x's. Those will be our inputs, and the second one will be our outputs. What's going on in the middle right there? That's basically what goes on in your mind. And so if I said, hey, we have an input of -2, we want you to take that part that is this part of the equation, and we want you to stuff the input into wherever there's that variable there. In this case, it's an x. So that x right here became a -2, and we use our order of operations to work our way through it. So 2 times -2 is -4, and then -4 plus 1 is -3. So our output is -3. Again, our input is -2, that's what we put into it, and our output is -3. Now, if we take our input and our output together, our x and our y, and we just shove them together, this makes an ordered pair. Let's go put a different input in though. Let's put -1, and there's no rhyme or reason about these inputs. Usually you get to decide what you want to put in there. In this case, I'm telling you what I want to put in there. So let's put a -1 in because it's very easy. So this -1 goes in for this x, that's our input. So this x became -1 this time. 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 1 is -1. And so we could take our input and our output and set them off to the side as an ordered pair. If we looked back to the definition, each x value has exactly one y value. And what that means is that if I put a -1 in right here on this row for the input, I'm still going to get the same answer, -1. If I put -2 in, again, let's just say I put -2 in on this third row right here, then I'm still going to get a -3 output, again, because we're just going to do the exact same math. So that's what they're talking about. Each input has one output. It means if I stick a -1 in, it's always going to get this -1 right here, at least for this equation, this function. Equations and functions, pretty much the exact same thing. Let's put a 0 in, run it through the math, and we get 1. So there's our ordered pair. Let's put a 1 in, right? So that x became a 1. Run it through the math, and there's our output. And let's get an ordered pair. So let's go through and let's actually graph these ordered pairs. This -2, -3 is right here. If you are sitting here going, I don't understand how this goes, please go and just Google, how do I graph an ordered pair? Okay? -1, -1 would go right there. 0, 1 lines up right there. And the 1, 3 would be right there. And so what I'm trying to share with you is that if we completed this function table of inputs and outputs, and we put the x's and y's together to create these ordered pairs, each one of these points is actually on the line of this equation, or we would call it a function, because again, this is a function, okay? And so now we just connect our points, and we have a straight line to those 4 points. Don't forget the things that I've taught you in the past, though. Hey, look, this is a straight line, so we would refer to it as linear. And so we could also refer to it as a linear function because it makes a straight line for the graph. But functions can be shown as a table of inputs and output table values. And that's what you're seeing right here. Most of the time, this middle part right here is not there because we just assume that you know how to plug in an x value into this part of the equation and then popping out the output. Now, we can also take this XY table and make it the graph over here. So sometimes they just show us the graph talking about these functions, right? And then they can also give us an equation. And this is the equation right here. So an XY table, an equation, or a graph. And sometimes we don't call this an equation. We just call it like a function, or quite frankly, we call it a function rule. but it's the same thing. A function or a function rule, it's all referring back to this. A little confusing, but that's what it is.